Good evening. Good evening, Sir Andy.
Hello, good evening.
Good
Evening.
evening, brothers and sisters. Are you there?
Yeah.
So, yes, good evening again. Nahiya ako kasi may mga kasama ko dito.
Okay lang yan, kuya. Power, power. Ano yan? Spiritual support.
So, um, chapter 4, we've learned that because of the failure of those saints, disciples, Jesus, John the Baptist, the providence of restoration has been prolonged. Jesus was crucified, but we cannot just blame them actually because it's very difficult to believe that time. Kahit nga tatanungin ko kayo, if kayo yung disciples that ni Jesus Christ, uh, are you going to really believe Jesus is the Messiah? So, anyway, we have to like the the most important thing is we have to recognize who is the Messiah. So even before they recognize, it's hard for them to recognize. So now it's our time. We knew already. It's our time to recognize who is the Messiah. But first, let's tackle about resurrection. If you understand what is the meaning of resurrection, then our mindset will be changed. But our concept about this resurrection will be changed. So there are two uh, like traditional belief of a concept of resurrection. One is the traditional belief of, especially if whatever religion we have, so we have this meaning of resurrection, and the other one is this new perspective of the unification principle about the meaning of resurrection. So when literally, I mean, by word itself, resurrection means to rise from dead. Resurrection means to come back to life. To come back to life, it means that we have been dead. Now, if we understood this one literally as being dead, so therefore, the saints before were going to rise from the dead. Because according to the First Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16, and Matthew chapter 27, verse 52, that the people at the time of Jesus Christ, who were dead, were going to rise. But you know, in our modern era, millennials kaya tayo, are you going to believe this? This is like very tremendous challenge for us as a millennials, and this is a challenge also for the Christians, that how a life, a dead 2,000 dead person 2,000 years ago, then we're going to rise again. This is just this is our challenge, the challenge of the Christians, and our challenge also as millennials, because I think it's hard for us to believe this one. And in science, when someone died and then decomposed, these elements or this decomposed will be eaten by a worm, or maybe it will become a grass, or this worm will be eaten by like birds, and birds will be eaten by um, other animals. So what I'm trying to say is, even this process of food chain, the decompose will not going to rise, will not going to um, constitute again, will not going to decompose again, but it will be divided into different animals in the creation. So it doesn't make sense at all. that this in our modern era, when we believe this life this dead person will rise, then for sure matatakot tayo. Punta ka sa sementeryo tapos biglang may babangon. Siguradong tatakbo talaga tayo, di ba? But in our era, this doesn't make sense. So what is the meaning of resurrection? Therefore, to fathom the meaning of resurrection, we must clarify first the biblical concepts of life and death. What is life and death according to the Bible? So in the biblical concept of life and death, when one of the followers of Jesus said that I want to go home because I want to bury my father. And then Jesus said, "Leave the dead to bury their own dead." In Luke chapter 9, verse 16. From these words of Jesus, it is clear that the Bible contains two different concepts of life and death. So there are two different concepts based on the Bible: leave the dead to bury their own dead. So it's hard to understand this kind of this verse from the Bible. But let us understand these two concepts of death. First, death means the end of physical life, as was the case of the disciples' deceased father who was to be buried. Life in that sense means that the state in which the physical self maintains its physiological functions. So here the death means, in the first one, the death means end of physical life. It's like already the heartbeat stops. Doesn't breathe anymore. So, and then the second concept of life. So if the first one is physical death and physical life, what is the second one? The one who will go, the dead who are going to bury the other dead. So what is the meaning of the second death? The second concept of life and death concerns those living people who have gathered to bury the deceased men. This death refers to leaving the bosom of God's love and falling under the dominion of Satan. From the bosom of God's love, falling under the dominion of Satan. The corresponding concept of life refers to the state of living in accordance with God's will within the dominion of God's infinite love. So it is about falling under the dominion of Satan. From God, then Satan becomes the center of his life. That's what the meaning of the second death. This is a spiritual life and death. So spiritual life, which means our center must be God, with our unity in mind and body, to become an ideal person. And the spiritual death is when our center became Satan. And according to the Bible, spiritual life in John chapter 11, verse 26, it is talking about spiritual life, that whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. And in John chapter 5, verse 24, he who hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life. He has passed from death to life. To set the mind on the spirit is life and peace. And the spiritual death, you have the name of being alive and you are dead. You are alive and then dead. This means spiritual death, not physically dead. Then in 1 John chapter 3, verse 14, he who does not love abides in death. So those person who is not practicing love will abides in death. We're going to have a spiritual death. For the wages of sin is death from Romans chapter 6, verse 23. And to set the mind on the flesh is death. So we have two biblical concepts of death. But the question is, which of the two concepts of death caused by the human fall? So when we go back to Adam and Eve, by eating, they eat the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Namatay ba sila that day? But according to some Christians, they believe that eating of the fruit is the cause of their bodies to decompose. So dahil daw kumain sila si Adam and Eve sa prutas, kaya kaya na-decompose yung body natin. Otherwise, they will live for eternity. And the second, and this one, a day with God is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. So which means that time, if Adam and Eve doesn't live for thousands of years, so they live only 930, so which means it's like, yeah, it's true. But according to the principle of creation, the flesh is the clothing of the spirit. Just as one discard worn out clothes, the flesh is to be disregarded when it has grown old and weak. Only the unclothed spirit self enters the spirit world and lives there for eternity. Lives there eternally. So the flesh will going to remain only on earth, and the spirit will go to the spirit world. And in addition to that, in the Bible, we have this from Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 7. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. So from this Christian belief, it is not possible, because even in the Bible it says that we came from the dust and we will die again. We will die, and the dust will remain on earth. So therefore, the death caused by the fall does not mean the end of physical life, but rather the descent into the evil dominion of Satan. God told Adam and Eve that on the day they ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they would surely die. From Genesis chapter 2, verse 17. Hence, before eating the fruit, they were alive. And after eating the fruit, they were dead. And that death is what we call the spiritual death. So here, from the dominion of God, instead of supposed to establish the kingdom of heaven here on earth, what happens after the fall? It becomes the history of evil, where Satan is the center, and people and Satan established the kingdom of hell on earth. This is the cause of the fall. Spiritual death. Now, what is the meaning of resurrection? So resurrection may be defined as the process of being restored from the death caused by the fall to life, from the realm of Satan's dominion to the realm of God's direct dominion, through the providence of restoration. So the cause of the fall is from God's direct dominion to Satan's dominion, and now the resurrection is from Satan's dominion to the realm of God's direct dominion. That should be the resurrection, but in the process of restoration. Here, what we can see in the diagram. So from the history of evil will become the history of goodness, where establishing an ideal family centered on God and accomplishing the kingdom of heaven here on earth. The meaning of resurrection, it is not physical, it is spiritual. To leave Satan's dominion and return to God's dominion. So what changes does resurrection cause in human beings? So Adam and Eve died when they eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Nevertheless, no significant external change took place in them. At most, there were momentary changes in their countenances, due to the anxiety and fear they felt over having fallen. Likewise, no significant external changes should be expected to take place in fallen people when they are resurrected to the state prior to the fall. So when Adam and Eve fell, there's no external changes happen in their in their in their they did not die, to be exact. But there is an internal changes happen. Jesus was truly a man who fulfilled the purpose of creation. Nevertheless, judged by his outward appearance, Jesus was not noticeably different from ordinary people. The changes a person experiences when he is resurrected and enters the governance of God take place in his heart and spirit. These internal changes also purify his body, transforming it from a haunt of Satan into a temple of God. So during the time of Adam and Eve, there is a changes, but that is internal changes in their heart and spirit. That's that changes. That's resurrection caused by in human beings during the time of Adam and Eve up until now. The changes of heart and spirit. So if this is the internal changes, the resurrection must also come from the internal, in the heart and spirit. The individual resurrection of the individual internal resurrection is a changes in the heart and spirit of every individual. So to conclude this lecture, this is the first section of the. There will be another section. So we will know later how does God works providence of resurrection. But here, the resurrection, we understood that this is the death is the spiritual death, and resurrection must occur in spirit, from Satan's dominion to God's direct dominion. I hope that, because it starts with individual, so I hope that these internal changes will start in ourselves, in our heart, in our spirit, centering on God. And we will know later how the providence of resurrection will be accomplished. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kuya Herwin. Let's give a round of applause to Kuya Herwin, brothers and sisters. Thank you for giving such a strong presentation, Kuya. So, nakakatakot nga naman kung ano, di ba? We will be talking about zombies kapag physical. Ano na dito, my God, I don't like zombies. So, brothers and sisters, some short reminder lang po, kindly rename yourselves so that we can identify you and check the attendance. So, kung sino po, say for example, kung nag-share po kayo ng screen, kindly, paki-indicate po kung sino po yung kasama ninyo para ma-check namin sa attendance. Is that fine? Well, am I clear? Yes. Sample, ito pong sa Bohol Center, pwede niyo po ba siyang i-change, kuya, ate? Yes. Pwede pong i-rename niyo po yung sarili niyo para po ma-identify po kayo ng nag-check ng attendance. Thank you. So, next we will be, our next presenter is no other than Kuya Julius Escleto. Are you ready now, Kuya?
Yes, okay.
Okay, let's give a round of applause and welcome Kuya Julius, brothers and sisters. Please listen attentively. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to our Divine Principle Lecture. So we are now on the section 2 of the chapter 5 of the Divine Principle, which is the providence of resurrection. So earlier, our first lecturer in the section 1 defines resurrection. So their resurrection means to come back to life. So to come back to life implies that we have been dead. So, but here we are talking about spiritual death. Okay? So meaning falling under the dominion of Satan. So that is because of the fall of our first human ancestors, Adam and Eve. So we inherited this fallen lineage. So accordingly, the providence of resurrection is the providence of restoration and thus providence of recreation. Thus the providence of resurrection is carried out in accordance with the principle of creation. So the providence of resurrection is to resurrect, restore, and recreate fallen person into, makita natin dito, an original person. Okay, Adyo? So the question now is, how does God carry out his work of resurrection? So first, the merit of the age has increased in proportion to the foundation of heart laid by the prophets, sages, and righteous people who came before us, and the subsequent generations benefit from the merit of the age. So meaning, because of the foundation of heart laid by those central figures, sages, prophets, and righteous people, we inherited this merit of the age. Yung mga subsequent generations. Now, for example, yung sa time ni Noah, Noah, Abraham, start lang. So, the next era, time of medyo broad and base ni God, on which fallen people could open up their relationship to God. So, nagiging law. Then time ni Jesus, now in our time. So, because of the foundation of heart laid by those righteous people. Okay, second, God's responsibility is to give us His word and guidance. And our responsibility is to be and practice it. So, after God creating Adam and Eve, anong sinabi niya? Sabi niya, God gave the commandment, do not eat the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat, you will surely die. So what is the responsibility of Adam and Eve? Is to keep and obey God's commandment. The same it does, eating of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Meaning don't commit sexual sin. Yes or no? And what's our responsibility? Believe, practice it. That means we will obey God's commandment. Adyo? Okay, third. The resurrection of a spirit can be achieved only through earthly life in the physical self. So it is because the resurrection of spirit or growth of spirit can only be achieved by the give and take action between the life elements from God and the vitality elements from the physical body. So we cannot resurrect our spirit apart from physical body. Number fourth, the providence of resurrection is to be completed through three ordered stages. So if we recall, the principle of creation, all things, all beings must pass through three stages of the growing period. So the same thing with the providence of resurrection, because it is carried out in accordance with the principle of creation. Yes or no? And now the providence of resurrection for people on earth. So the 2,000 years from Adam to Abraham may be called the age of the providence to lay the foundation for resurrection. So in this era, from Adam to Abraham, this is just to lay the foundation for resurrection. Now from Abraham to Jesus, we become of the providence of formation stage resurrection. age of justification by works. Then upon their death, the believers of this era entered and abided in the form, spirit level of the spirit world. So this is called age of the providence of formation stage resurrection, age of justification by works through practicing the law. No? This is in the form spirit level. So people in this era, so upon their death, no, and they will enter and abide in this level also, the form spirit level of the spirit world. So the 2000 from Jesus returning Christ will be called the age of providence of God stage resurrection, age of justification by faith. Upon their death, the believers of this era enter and abide in paradise, the life spirit level of the spirit world. This is the age of the providence of God stage resurrection, no? Age of justification by faith. So what? No? By believing Jesus Christ as the Messiah. Then, upon their death, the believers of this era also entered and abide in paradise, in this level, no? The life spirit level of the spirit world. Bilis ba? Okay lang? Aju? So the era when people are to complete the providence of resurrection through returning Christ is called the age of the providence of completion stage resurrection, age of justification by attendance. Then upon death, the believers of this era will enter and abide in the kingdom of heaven in heaven, which is the divine spirit world of the spirit world. So this is the age of the providence of completion stage resurrection, age of justification by attendance through believing, serving, attending the Lord of the second advent. And the believers of this era, upon their death, will enter and abide in the kingdom of heaven in heaven, which is the divine spirit level of the spirit world. Now, the providence of resurrection for spirits. So the spirits of people who died before they could reach perfection during their earthly life can be resurrected only by returning to earth and completing their unaccomplished responsibility through cooperation with earthly people. As I've said before, we cannot resurrect, no, our spirits apart from physical body because we need that vitality elements, no, which came from our physical body. So they will go down, no, on earth and find their counterparts. Then they will receive the same benefit. And we call this process returning resurrection. So after the advent of Jesus, the four spirits of the Old Testament age all returned to earth and assisted faithful people on earth to attain the level of life spirit. So by this, they too received the same benefit, entered paradise. Together, we call this growth stage returning resurrection. So after the advent of Jesus, so yung mga spirits doon sa form level, no, stage, they also go down on earth to support those faithful people. And when those people fulfill their responsibility, and also they receive the same benefit and entered paradise together. No? So that's the purpose. No? So they can elevate their spirits also on the next level, no? And enter paradise together. So we call this growth states returning resurrection. And after the second advent, the spirits of the New Testament age will return to the earth to help faithful people on earth to attain the level of divine spirit. By this too, they too will receive the same benefit and enter the heavenly kingdom together. We call this completion stage, returning resurrection. So lahat naman doon sa yung mga spirits doon sa life spirit level ng yung stage na yun, also they will go down, no, to earth to cooperate those faithful people. And the same thing, if they fulfill their responsibility sa mga tinulungan nila, then also the same, no? They can receive the same benefit and enter heavenly kingdom together. And we call this completion stage, returning resurrection. Now, ito naman, the returning resurrection of spirits who abide outside paradise. So, a spirit who believed in a religion other than Christianity during his lifetime seeks a counterpart among the earthly people of the same life. He descends to a person of his choice and guides him. When he helps the person for the purpose of the providence situation, they both receive the same benefit. So kanina we are talking about more on Christian, no, particular, no, Christianity. So how about doon yung outside doon, Buddhism, no, other religions, no? So the same thing, no, they can find their counterparts kung anong sila, particular group or religion sila, no? Then the same thing, they cooperate, assist, and if that person fulfill the purpose of the providence of restoration, and they both receive the same benefit. Now, good spirits who live in a conscientious life, they send good people on earth and cooperate with them. In the process, the spirits receive the same benefits as the people they have helped. So, mayroon namang mga spirits, yung people before na hindi mga religious, but they are righteous, no, or conscientious. So, ganun din, yung counterpart nila, no, yung common base nila, no, doon sila mag-work, mag-assist, mag-cooperate. And the same thing, if they fulfill the purpose of the providence of restoration, and they receive the same benefits as the people they have helped. So, how about those evil spirits? So, in order for evil spirits to receive benefit turning resurrection, their works must have the effect of punishing earthly people to help them make conditions to indemnify their failures, which have frustrated God's past efforts to cleanse them of their sins. So, two ways na gagawin ng mga evil spirits. Unang-una, they inflict sakit sa inyo. Then if you endures such sickness, sufferings, and repent, reflect on yourself, okay, of your sins, then make a new beginning in your life. And the same thing, no? Those evil spirits who make punishment on you will receive the same benefit, no? Doon sa ginawa nila. Then, ito pala, I reflected on this, kasi during before the blessing, nagkasakit din ako eh. Yung, hard cuff. So, hirap hirap. Kasi kumando kami, mahirap mag-fundraise. Nag-try na sana kung nagpaalam na ako actually, uwi. But gumaling naman ako sa sickness ko. And now still continue, no? Yung life course natin. So, yung nag-inflict naman ng sa akin na evil spirit, so you also have that same benefit, no? If I fulfill my responsibility. Another thing is they use evil people on earth, no? And also inflict some problems on you. And same thing, if you endure such sufferings, hardships, then those also evil spirits will receive the same benefit. So here everything we learn that the providence of resurrection is to resurrect, restore, and recreate people, no? into calling people into an original person. But we have to understand that we have to, the most important thing is to abide God's commandment. Kasi this is the root cause, no? The failure of Adam and Eve. That's why everything has becomes like this. So that's all, everything, all I can say. Thank you for listening. Again, good evening.
Thank you so much, Kuya Julius. Let's give a round of applause to our Kuya Julius Escleto, brothers and sisters. Are you still okay, brothers and sisters? Ano, kailangan na ba ng resurrection natin dito? Natutulog na ba ang ating mga diwa, brothers and sisters? Wag muna. Wag muna, ha? So, let us now listen to our last presenter for tonight. It's no other than Ate Relina Dolendo, brothers and sisters. Let's give her a round of applause.
Kuya Julius, pa-exit yung pan, yung share mo.
Hi.
Iga po. Kinakabahan. Good evening. Nasa section 3 na tayo of chapter 5, Resurrection.
Ate, your feedback yun po. Then,
Yes,
nagfi-feedback po.
nilib ko yung isa. Yan, okay na?
Yes, better ate.
Good evening again. So you have, we have learned from section 1 the meaning of resurrection, which is going back from life, from death to life, di ba? And yung death na pinag-uusapan natin doon, yung resurrection na pinag-uusapan natin doon, dito is the death caused by the fall. And in section 2, we have learned yung different, yung how God worked through the providence of resurrection. And that we also learn na God, walang lahat ay mare-resurrect, di ba? Lahat ay mare-resurrect, even yung mga nauna na sa atin mare-resurrect, di ba? Pero kung mapapansin nyo dun sa lalo na sa section 2, mapapansin nyo kung sina Adam and Eve, kung hindi sila nag-fall supposedly for tatlong stages lang sila, formation, growth, and completion lang sila. Pero pagdating due to the fall, hindi siya naging 3 stages lang tayo di ba? Adam and Eve falls below the formation stage, di ba? So kailangan nilang, they need to climb up even sa bago formation stage, di ba? Ganun siya. parang meron pa rin siyang ganung ka ano. So mahirap talaga na not to follow God's will, or not to be loyal to God's word, to God's word. So now in section 3, ano ba yung pag-uusapan natin sa section 3? Remember, kung maalala nyo, during the
Ate Relina. Wait lang. Hello, ate? Hello po? Wala si Ate Relina, brothers and sisters.
No, wala. Picture taking mo na, Celine.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me, Kuya Randy. So, brothers and sisters, kindly turn on your cameras so that we can take a picture po. A group photo. Yan. Thank you. Ate, na-check mo na to sila, no? Yung Bohol Center. Ang saya-saya naman sa Bohol Center. Nakikita ko, yeah. They're all together. Pati kina Ate Emmy Sol. Ang dami-dami nila sa screen. So, how about
Sa
the
Friday.
others? Kuya
Sa Friday,
Fred
isang
Joel,
table din lang tayo sa Friday.
Kuya Christian, Ate Rosaline, Ate Roylene.
Nalobat daw po si Ate Relina.
Ano
Ha?
ba?
Okay. Ate Micah, kindly show yourself. Show yourself. Sabi nga. Asan na ba
Si
yung
Jay.
Ready
Si
na
Song
ba?
Yang.
Alright, sige, let's do this. Ready, brothers and sisters? Smile. Show your beautiful smiles. Hana, two, set. Watch automatic to the side. Next. Ano ba? Heart tayo. Ready? Hana, two, set. Okay. One last. Sabi lagi siya ng... Alright. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters. Alright. Thank you. So, I think Ate Relina, nakabalik na si Ate. Ate Relina, are you with us now? Maybe she's still setting up. Maybe, I don't know.
Sinong kakanta muna?
Ayan. Ha?
naririnig nyo ako? I'm back.
Yes, Ate. I can hear you.
Sorry.
Can you hear her, brothers and sisters?
Yes po.
Okay, that's great.
Hindi ko napansin na hindi pala nakasaksak yung aking laptop. Bigla siyang bumagal. Okay. Remember yung during the introduction wherein we said one of the mission of the new truth, which is the divine principle, is to unite religion, di ba? So, yun yung pag-usapan natin dito, paano ba? So, yung unity of religion or unification of religion is yung pala yung returning resurrection din ng religion. So, section 3 of chapter 5, resurrection, is the unification of religions to returning resurrection. So, paano ba ma-unite yung religion through returning resurrection? So, Christ at the second advent is the central figure whose advent is expected in other religions as well, di ba? So meron din silang hinihintay na, no, even sa Confucianism, meron silang hinihintay na, hinihintay din nila na merong second advent. Yun nga yung pinapahanap yata kaninang umaga may pinapahanap si Sir Randy kay Sir Herwin about sa Google. na about dun sa second coming ni Buddha. So, I came across to that na tapos merong kasing account wherein yung second coming ni Buddha, nung knowing yung second coming ni Buddha, or through dream yata, parang ganon, lumabas na ang second coming ni Buddha is yung face ni Father. Lumabas yun during the nung linaunch yung autobiography ni Father. Kasi yata yung publisher of the autobiography ni Father is Confucianist yata. Ang belief niya is Confucianist. So, meron din silang hinihintay na second coming. Even sa Islam, meron din silang hinihintay na second coming. Hindi ko alam yung ibang religion. Yung Judaism, they are still waiting for the first coming. Yung ibang religion, hindi ko masyadong alam. Anyway. So paano magkakaroon ng returning resurrection and unity of religions through returning resurrection? So yung consequently, dahil may mga hinihintay din silang mga second advent sa mga bawat religion, all spirit who believe in religion in religions other than Christianity. Alam natin, di ba? We should know, by now, we know that ang central religion in the complete Testament age, in our era, during the lifetime or during the advent of the Lord of the Second Advent is Christianity, di ba? During their lifetime, must guide earthly believers. So yung mga namatay na spirits ng other religions, usually mga leaders nila, must guide their earthly believers of their respective religion to the Christ of the Second Advent. So, i-guide nila yung mga earthly believers nila. And assist them to believe in Him, dapat yan, attend Him in His work to fulfill His will. Even though the timing will vary, yung magbabari yung timing nila. Hindi pare-pareho yan kasi depende dun sa readiness nila, and then yung openness nila into receiving the new truth, diba? Kasi kasabi nga natin, hindi naman kung parang ang example niyan yung sabon, kahit nagaano effective yung sabon, diba? Pag hindi mo naman ginamit, hindi mo mapapatunayan, hindi mo masasabing effective siya, di ba? Kahit sabihin nung nag-produce niya na okay yan, pero kung hindi mo naman ginamit, or kasi ang gamit ng Messiah is to di ba? The second advent is to cleanse everything. Para siyang sabon na lilinisin niya lahat ng mga problema natin. Kaso, kung hindi mo naman siya papansinin, hindi mo naman siya gagamitin, hindi mo naman siya iniintindi at naniniwala ka lang sa gusto mong paniwalaan, hindi pa rin siya, wala pa rin effect siya. So, ang gagawin nila, since yung spirit of other religion, yung mga namatay na, lalong-lalo na yung mga head syempre namatay na karamihan yan, di ba? Lahat sila pala. Is that sila yung mag-guide sa kanilang mga earthly believers, whoever is leading their religions now. Parang i-guide nila para mag-attend sila sa Messiah and help the Lord of the Second Advent to fulfill God's will. Even though, yun nga, kahit na magbari nga yung timing niya, kasi nakadependent yan how dun sa kung paano yung spiritual foundation at openness nung nagre-receive nung nagre-receive yung guidance of the spirit world. Kasi kung di mo man naman pinapansin, parang ano yan eh, di ba palagi sinasabi lagi sa disaster, yung meron kwento sa disaster eh. Nagpray daw during the flood yata, yung isang flood, di ko alam kung anong flood yun o bagyo. Nagpray siya na iligtas siya. So, nagpray siya na iligtas siya, pero may mga volunteers na pumunta sa bahay niya para ililikas ka na po namin, sasamahan ka na po namin diyan sa tatanggalin ka na umalis ka na diyan sa bahay mo kasi nga tawag dito, mababaha yun, kasama yun sa mababaha at magiging mataas yung merong prediction, may yun yung sabi mababaha sila. Ayaw niyang pumunta. So, yun. Hindi siya sumama. Nung isip niya kasi may second floor naman yung bahay niya. So, nung nandyan na yung baha, meron na naman pumunta, na naman sila, nakabangka sila, naka-amphibian boat. Sabi nila, kinukuha na naman siya, tinutulungan na naman siya makaalis doon sa bahay niya. Tapos, hindi na naman siya sumama. Until na tumas na naman yung nandoon na siya sa bubungan niya, parang ganyan. Nagpe-pray na naman siya na ililigtas siya. Tapos pinuntahan na naman siya, helicopter na pupunta sa kanya. Sabi niya, feeling niya iniligtas siya ni God. Hindi pa rin siya sumama, di ba? Ano mangyayari sa kanya? Nung tumas na yung tubig, di syempre nalulot siya. Pagkarating daw niya sa langit, sabi sa kanya, bakit hindi mo ako liligtas? Yun yung ganon. So, yun yung kasi kung hindi ka magiging open sa at paniniwala ka lang sa paniniwala mo, yun yung problema. And that would lead, hindi mo pa rin makikilala yung Lord of the Second Advent at hindi ka makakasama dun sa returning resurrection. So yun. So all religions will eventually be united around Christianity. So Christianity being the central religion. Ang problema ang problema ngayon, alam naman natin na ang Christianity have failed to do their responsibility, so that ang nangyari, so that diba, we are the unificationist, tayo yung nagtitake ng responsibility ng diba, ng Christianity. So kaya naging mas mahirap yung restoration natin. At ang ginawa ni Father, di ba? Kung tutusin nung 2010, ano ba yung medyo na-late ako kanina. Pinanood nyo ba yung sa pilgrimage sa Israel, Sir Randy? Pinanood kanina sa morning, di ba? Hindi pinanood dito.
Yung Monday ng gabi po.
Anong Monday ng gabi? Dito. So yun. So anong ginawa ni Father para mag-unite yung ibang religion? So there are some religious leaders na talaga na nag-unite through dun sa yung burying of the cross, na nagkaroon ng pilgrimage sa Israel, yung mga religious leaders centering sa ACLC, di ba, napanood niyo yun? So yun. So ganun din, ang mangyayari talaga kapag hindi kasi mag-take ng responsibility, so walang choice, just like God, di ba? Nung hindi nag-take ng responsibility si Adam and Eve, hindi rin nag-take ng responsibility si si Lucifer, instead, tinuro niyo sa God, wala choice si God, kundi siya yung mag-initiate nung providence of salvation, which is yun yung resurrection. Ganun din para ma-unite yung religion, ang mag-initiate din, since the Lord of the Second Advent siya is one with God, ganun din ang gagawin niya, mag-take din siya ng responsibility. So siya yung nag-initiate dun sa pilgrimage papunta doon, nang sa ganon at least merong handful of religious leader that would help in the fulfillment of God's will through the other religions. So yun yung ginawa niya. Just like din kay Jesus Christ, nung hindi nag-take ng responsibility di ba? Nung hindi nag-take ng responsibility si John the Baptist, di ba? Ang ginawa niya, tinake niya yung responsibility ni John the Baptist. Kaya lang, katulad nga na sabi ni Sir Randy, nagkaroon na naman ng problema dahil kay paring Judas. So, yun. So lahat ng religion para ma-unify sila should be unified or eventually united around Christianity through the initiative of the unification movement, or yung Family Federation and UPF right now, di ba? Under dun sa leadership ni Mother ngayon as the being true parents. Spirits, paano naman yung mga non-religious unification ng non-religious people with through paano sila mare-resurrect through returning resurrection. Ganun din, spirit who in their lifetime led a conscientious life, so talagang walang iiwan si God, but that did not believe in any religion, will also return to earth. So babalik sila sa earth at the granted time to receive the benefit of returning resurrection. Yung granted time na pinag-uusapan dito is yung second coming, yung Lord of the Second Advent. They will guide conscientious earthly people to seek out Christ at the Second Advent. So sila yung mag-guide. Katulad din nung sinabi kanina sa section 2. Attend Him and assist Him in fulfilling God's will. So kung mapapansin natin, so lahat din sila magkakaroon mamimit din nila yung Second Advent through people, so mga non-religious people. Yung mga non-religious people, nakatulong din nila na non-religious or wala silang pinaniniwalaan pero conscientious yung lifestyle nila. Ibig sabihin, mababait sila, hindi lang sila talaga naniniwala sa religion. Siguro dahil marami silang nakikitang hindi maganda sa religion, kaya hindi sila naniniwala. Pero mababait sila. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang talaga naniniwala sa religion. And then, the ultimate purpose of God's providence of restoration is to save all humanity. Ito nga yung sinasabi ni Mother, di ba? Wala dapat maiiwan. Therefore, God intends to abolish hell completely. By participating in this various dispensation over a long course of time, all people will gradually converge toward the goal of God's ideal world. So, ang ibig sabihin, we are, as people living now, we may be, maaring isa sa mga sa atin, maaring nagtataka tayo, bakit of all people, ako yung, of all, sa lineage nyo, ako lang, parang ganyan. Minsan, ako rin tinatanong ko yan bakit of all people, ako lang sa lineage ko, di ba? Maaring kasing isa kayo sa mga dito, maaring talagang rin siya, ancestral cooperation din talaga siguro. Kasi may mga minsan hindi rin, may mga iba din naman, iba-iba yung mga members sa atin, iba-iba yung foundation natin, di ba? Pero sometimes may mga nakikita tayo na wala naman talagang ginagawa, sabi na ng isang member, isang family member dito, sabi niya nung nandoon daw sila yata sa Davao or nandoon sila nung sa CARP pa lang sila, meron daw isang kasama sila na tutulog-tulog lang. Sabi, uy, alis daw tayo. Sa CARP daw yon. Sabi niya gano'n. Tutulog-tulog siya. Tapos sabi niya gano'n dun sa kasabi niya. Pupunta daw tayo ng Manila. Tapos tulog siya ulit. Ah, sige, Manila. Tapos, kasama ka ba? Tinanong siya, kasama? Bakit kasama? Wala akong pumasahe. Hindi libre daw. Parang ganun. Sumama siya pero hindi niya alam kung ano yung sinumahan niya. Pero sa tingin ko, these are ancestral cooperation. So yung mga iba't ibang cases na sinabi natin kanina kung paano magkaroon ng returning resurrection, maaring tayo yung we are harvesting it. Being the one na nakakaintindi ng providence or nakaintindi and nag-accept sa Lord of the Second Advent, the true parents, and then and the truth na nadala ng ating true parents from Heavenly Father. So that's end the chapter 5, resurrection.